Hello and welcome to the 4P Management Podcast with Sudeep. In today's podcast, I'm really excited to have as my guest Kareem Mayan. Since 2001, Kareem has founded and run product teams at four software companies and product manager at companies like ESPN.com, MySpace. He's built over a dozen products, doing everything from customer interviews, wireframing, user experience work, prioritizing, road mapping, leading teams, working with developers, and managing stakeholders. Currently co-founder of Savio, a tiny seed-backed product management platform for B2B software as a service companies, where he's talked with hundreds of product managers about their process. Welcome to the podcast, Kareem. It's an honor and privilege to have you on the show.
Thanks, Sudhir. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kareem. So let's go straight into understanding the role of a product manager in terms of collecting the feedback. So, what should product managers do to collect the customer feedback?
So it's a great question. I think maybe I want to step back a bit and talk about why it's important to track feedback. So
Yeah,
we live in this world today where everything is API FI'd. And so you have your customer facing colleagues in sales, success, and support are talking to customers. And all of that data is locked up in a CRM or a support tool or other tools that they use, other line of business tools.
mhm,
And so you can now get access to that information. And the reason you want to do it, the big reason, why track this feedback is that, as a product manager, one of the core pieces of your job is to make good prioritization decisions. And you want to bring as much data to bear on those decisions so that you can reduce the risk. And so without the data, without understanding who wants what, it's hard to make those decisions. You're operating in an absence of data. Um,
mhm,
because of that, it's difficult to get stakeholder alignment. It's easy to argue about a roadmap where there's very little evidence to suggest you should build one feature versus another. And very often, I'm sure we've all heard about the dreaded HIPPO, the highest paid person's opinion.
yeah,
That often drives roadmaps in an absence of evidence. And ultimately that means you're less likely to build what customers want. And that means that you're likely to grow slower or not grow at all. So that's sort of the why. In terms of what PMs should do to track feedback, so the first step is that you need to have, if you're not a product leader or head of the product organization, you really need buy-in from your product management leadership. If
mhm,
you're not in an organization where customer feedback is valued, it's going to be a tough slog for you. So that's sort of step one. Um, step two is getting buy-in from your teammates, right? Your customer-facing teams are basically your proxies when talking to customers, and so to get people to do something, often it's the path of least resistance is to show them why it's in their best interest to do what you want. So you both get what you want. So for sales, it's closing more deals, right? They're not going to lose as many deals because of feature gaps.
mhm,
They're gonna give you those gaps. You're gonna close them. And they're able to go back to prospects with feature updates. Hey, Sally at Acme, you're thinking about buying our software and you asked for the XYZ feature. Good news, that just went into development, right? It's a reason for sales to go back to prospects. For success, their job is to retain and expand accounts. And the way that you do that is by making your existing customers happier, by helping them, by solving more of the problems that they need solved with your software. And charging them for it. So that'll drive churn down, and that'll, depending on how you release these features or how you price them, can increase expansion revenue. On the support side,
mhm,
it's saying, they want to say we can help you. They get feature requests all the time, and when they know they have a process where they can send in feature requests to product, and then those features actually get built, and then support can go back to those customers and say, hey, you asked for this thing and we built it for you. It lets them say yes, or if you don't have the feature, it lets them say we can help you
mhm,
by
yeah,
tracking these features. And then ultimately you need to prove that, right? So you get the buy-in from sales, success, and support by telling them these things, but then you need to prove it. So one of the best things you can do when you start this process is when
mhm,
they give you a feature, or a request, you actually build it for them. It's the sort of positive feedback loop. You're reinforcing that their decision to give you that feedback is a good decision. It's not a waste of their time. So once you get buy-in, there's really only two other pieces. So one is you have a place to put that feedback, right? I recommend one tool, spreadsheet, Airtable database,
yeah,
piece of software like Savio, but one place, one sort of safe place to put it. And then the last piece is you want a simple process from your customer facing teams to log it to the tool. So in an ideal world, sales is busy closing deals, success is busy helping accounts, support is busy closing tickets and helping customers. You don't want to make them leave their tools to log the feedback because, logging the feedback is a secondary or tertiary responsibility. And so the more friction you add, the less feedback you're going to get as a product team. So, really to recap, it's be in a place where customer feedback is valued by leadership, get buy-in from teammates by showing them what's in it for them, have one tool to put your feedback in, and then have a simple process for your customer facing teams to log it without them leaving the tools where they receive the feedback.
Absolutely. I think it's a great way to put it. In fact, on the feedback tracking mechanism, in fact, I was just going through this tool as well, your tool as well, Savio, and I found it really, one is it's really helpful and it's so simplistic way. And I was just going through the video that you explained, in terms of tracking the feedback, how it is important, and this tool allows it to track it really, really, in a seamless manner, connecting all the things together. On the same, thought, can you talk a little bit more about this tracking system, right? The feedback tracking systems. Now, what I mean to ask is there will be a different variety of feedbacks coming, right? One is the tracking mechanism. How you seamlessly track it, and how do you derive insights out of it as a product manager?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the first step is really getting all of your feedback, getting your steady stream of insights from your customer facing teams without tracking those insights. They're just in the ether. They're locked up in their own line of business tools or in your teammates' heads.
Yeah.
So once you have all of that feedback in one place, you've really got, one way to think about it is a database of product feedback. And if you're doing it well, the things to log are the customer verbatim that the customer gave you.
Mhm.
Let's use an example. I use SurveyMonkey, and I really need an integration with your tool to, send surveys from your tool. So that might be a piece of feedback that you get, a raw piece of feedback. So what you want to know is what you want to have logged in your tool is that piece of feedback. You want to have a way of categorizing that. So like you might categorize that as belonging to like a SurveyMonkey integration feature request. You want to know who logged it, right? Sally or John or Mohammed or whatever, the account, right? Let's say Acme Corp. And then any other data around that person or account. So like, how much is the account worth? Is there any opportunity revenue associated with the account? What plan are they on? What region are they in? Those kinds of details. What customer segment are they in? So when you have all
Mhm.
that information in one place, in your little feedback database, it becomes very easy to derive insights in seconds. So for example, the basic things would be show me the top feature request by number of votes,
Mm.
right? The raw number of people who've asked for it. Show me the top feature request by active revenue, the revenue the account is paying you. So, if you have 10 people who've asked for the SurveyMonkey integration, they're each paying you $1,000 a month, that feature request is worth $10,000 to you.
Yeah.
Show me top request by opportunity revenue. Show me the top feature request in the last 90 days or the last 90 days from customers in India.
Mhm.
Show me what my key customer segments want, right? So like if you're focusing on churned customers or lost deals, let's say you're losing too many deals, you want to win more deals. Show me all the feature requests from lost deals, right? Let's build some of those and close some of those feature gaps that our sales team are reporting back to us in the market. So, the real key is having the feedback in one place and then having metadata around it that you can use to then derive insights. So, the very basics are show me the top most popular requests, but you can go a lot deeper than that and segment those requests by along various different axes in order to dive deeper.
Absolutely. I think thanks. So, I mean, let me just add here in terms of the similar story of lost deal analysis from a from a product hardware product point of view. Let's say the part of business, for example, that I manage, right? So let's say we our sales teams, they work with a lot of customers, the enterprise customers, and apart from the product features, whatever product features that we have on our products, sometimes, despite maybe the product having good on the pricing front, maybe we don't win the deal. and that's how it becomes a lost deal. Now, as a product manager, what do we do is we keep track of those deals, in terms of putting into a lost deal tracker, and then obviously we do analysis each line item by item. That what is it that we lacked here, that we were not able to win this, and as a collective, when the feedback comes, we try to assess what could have been better in order to have a less deal. On the same thought, I have a question which I want your help to align with the software part of it. That once the feedback is received, maybe after analyzing lost deals, how do you align that customer feedback, right, back, which is received back to the business goals, right? As a tech
Right.
product manager, what should they do once the feedback is incorporated? How do we align it to the business goals?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And really, like, this is sort of one of the main parts of product management's job. I mean, this presupposes that the business goals have been articulated clearly by by the execs who run the company. And assuming that's the case, um, what you really want to do is uh, focus on outcomes that are going to support those goals. So, like, I shared a bit more, in the previous example. We can dive deeper based on your example, which is win-loss analysis, right? Or loss analysis. So, if your company goal is we're losing too many deals, we want to win more enterprise deals in our enterprise segment, you would look for your product feedback from lost deals where the segment was enterprise,
Hmm.
right? You look for enterprise segment lost deals, and
Yeah.
some of those would be lost due to things that are out of product management's control, maybe
Hmm.
pricing or whatever reason.
Yeah.
But some of them would be in, right? The reason there would be a product related reason you lost a deal.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do then is you're taking your big list of feature, like my experience is that prioritization is really, but you've got your big list of feature requests and you need to whittle it down into smaller and smaller, more manageable
Uh-huh.
chunks where you can then pick, the list of things that you're gonna work on for the next quarter or year, whatever your time horizon is.
Hmm.
So when you can take your big list and say, show me just feature requests from enterprise, customer lost deals, you then have a short list and show me the product reasons, for those deals that we lost them. Then you have a much shorter list of feature requests. And so, from there you can say, okay, well, which ones align with our priorities strategically? Maybe which ones if we had built those features, which ones would have given us the most revenue from winning the deals, right? There's sort of a whole variety of axes that you can then take that even smaller, list of enterprise lost deal reasons and make it sort of smaller and smaller until you then have enough to fill your roadmap. But I mean, it's a great question, and this is honestly, like, my experience is there's two missing components
Hmm.
with aligning feedback to business goals. One is the business goals are not articulated clearly enough at the top, so it's hard for a line product manager or director of product to understand, what should I be building in order to help the business grow.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then the second is actually having the feedback, right? Like, okay, I know that our priorities are to, win more deals, but we don't have a good organized set of data about product related lost deal reasons from our enterprise segment. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to guess, or I'm gonna have to go talk to a couple of customers, or see if I can get on the phone with a couple of lost deals and and figure those things out instead of having sort of a good data set to base those decisions on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I would also think that when you're doing that segmentation, you briefly touched upon. I think the feedback that is received, right now, uh, is it a good approach to segment it in a way that, like, out of the top priorities or the top business goals, right? As a product manager, then when you're doing a corrective action, you're actually at least targeting the top ones, if not all of the business goals. So how does that work in the software side? How do one prioritize, let's say if there are five feedbacks received, how the prioritization work in terms of implementing which feedback should be a must to implement, or maybe the other ones are good to implement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is a bit where, in my experience, the art of product management comes in, right? So if you have, let's imagine you have some data. So you have, here are the five feature requests. They're worth various different amounts in lost deal size, and
Yeah.
our priority is win more deals. So one approach would be just stack rank them from most revenue we would have gained to least revenue and just work that way.
Yeah.
But there's other approaches, right? So other approaches are, well, who are the customers who've actually asked for one feature versus another, right? Are some of them more important than others?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
how do they align? How does each feature align with our strategic priorities? Right? Customers don't really have a good handle on where you see the product and the business going. And so you may know that, integrations are a key focus this quarter for a variety of marketing or lead gen reasons, right? You get partners sending you leads if you integrate with them. So you may want more leads as well as to close more deals. And so you may then decide to focus on, even though the integrations in those 5 feature requests, some of them are integrations, but maybe those integrations are not the top ones, but they're the 4th and 5th, most popular ones by revenue. Well, you may still decide to focus on those because those are strategically more important to you this quarter than they would be next quarter. I'm not sure there's a right answer, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only sort of find it out in retrospect, and I think each prioritization situation is different.
Uh-huh.
So this really is where, in my experience, the art comes into play more than the science. Like, the idea is you have the data, you can make a reasoned decision if you want to go totally analytical,
Mm-hmm.
but the truth is that that's not necessarily, the way you do want to go. I mean, maybe one of those features might take 3 quarters to build,
Yeah.
right? And you just don't have that much in the dev budget. You only have a quarter's worth of dev budget, so you may not build that feature. So there's a whole variety of other variables at play here when it comes to prioritization.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think because of that same reason that it's not that easy, and there are there are different priorities. Now, if someone as a product manager wants to move ahead to inculcate that priority or feedback into the product plan, it has to. I mean, there is a lot to do to get a management buy-in, right? If you want those plans to be implemented. Now, what steps one can take to collect those customer evidence points, right, to support your product plans or something that you want to implement as a after the feedback is received? What are those steps or what are those necessary customer evidence that a PM should take to get a buy-in from the company management?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the raw materials for our customers, the raw materials that they use for evidence are the customer verbatims, right? Whatever gets logged
Mm-hmm.
in the support tool or CRM, that all gets sent over to Savio, and then gets linked to a feature request, and then those feature requests get put on a roadmap. And
Mm-hmm.
so the experience they have is when they're in the roadmap meeting with stakeholders, they can go through each one, and the VP of sales says, well, the foobar feature, I just got off the phone with our biggest customer and they want the foobar feature, and I don't see the foobar feature anywhere on here. You can pull up, as a product manager, you can pull up each feature, including the foobar feature, and walk through why the foobar feature is not the one to build, right? You've got your customer evidence right in front of you. You've got your Savvy roadmap up on, or Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is, wherever you're keeping your feedback, up on a screen or shared on Zoom, and you can walk through each feature and the backing evidence. Here's the customers, here's the revenue, here's all the important data we've used to make our decision. And so it makes those conversations go much more smoothly. I mean, in terms of like concrete steps, I always like to leave people with like an actionable to do. So like I would recommend, what steps, if you're trying to figure out the steps to take to
Uh-huh.
collect evidence, I'd say, you want to sketch out a process. So like, where's your feedback coming from? Open a spreadsheet, write down each team, and then the tool that they use to collect feedback, right? So you can map those things out. I would figure out a place to put it. Excel is a great place to start if you're small. If you're bigger, you may want to look at some tooling, and then document how each team will log it, right? So for support, are they going to log it via a Zapier integration? Are they going to cut and paste and flip over to the tool to put it in there? They can use a Chrome extension, whatever it is. Put all
Yeah.
that in your spreadsheet. Then share your process with each team. I would honestly recommend finding, one person in support, success, and sales who are eager about logging this feedback, and run a little pilot with them. Run
Mm-hmm.
just like a small pilot and ask them, just go to them around the water cooler or Slack or whatever, and ask them if they're interested in helping you out and in getting something in return, which is, being able to close more deals and make customers happier and all that good stuff. And then just test it out for a month or two. See how that system works. See where the bugs are. see what processes need to be ironed out a little bit more. And you as a product manager are going to have, a bunch of people who are excited about giving this feedback, giving you feedback, and you will see the value of having this customer evidence when you're in your next stakeholder meeting, presenting the roadmap. Because what you want to be in that role, Sudhir, is the best informed person about what the customers need.
Yeah.
So that when the VP sales or CEO or whomever challenges you on what your product plans are, you can just pull up the evidence. And they may override you, but they can't really do that often without kind of looking silly, because you've got all the evidence in front of you.
Yeah.
And so they may resort to a hippo charge. I'm higher paid than you are, so we're going to go with my opinion. But it doesn't happen that often anymore when you've got the evidence in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I would approach that process there.
Nothing can beat the data, and nothing can beat when it is coming from the customer. So I think it's a great point that you made, Kareem, that once you have customer evidence on your side, even if the highest paid individual is in the room, I think your opinion and the data that you're sharing is valuable, and I think gets valued. So I think that's a great input, Kareem. Now, see, there are a lot of young product managers, who are managing the tech side of it, and you see there are a lot of startups coming in, wherein obviously the product is built on a tech platform. Obviously, they do take consumer behavior in mind when deciding a feature extension or anything that they want to build. Uh, you know, you being on that side where you've spent about 20 years working with different organizations would have seen the product evolution from the initial stages to the evolution after multiple iterations and feedback. What advice would you give to build to the young product guys or the tech product managers? What are those skills and capabilities that they should build when they grow in their
Honestly, I would say try and keep your ego in check. And really, I'm talking to myself 20 years ago when I quote unquote knew all the answers.
Okay.
It was very easy and very fun to sit in a conference room with no customer input, to figure out what to build next. I was lucky enough to have that, to realize how wrong I was. We hired a firm to do some usability testing on our app when I was working at ESPN, and we were behind sort of one-way glass. So you've got a facilitator and a subject and a computer, and then you've got the whole team who built it behind a piece of glass. And so the subject can't see you, right? Because you can only see out through the team can see into the room, but the subject can't see behind the glass. And so this person was just using our app and stumbling all over the place. Like, very obvious UX improvements were needed, very obvious features were needed. Our pricing was wrong. We didn't message effectively what you got when we asked you to upgrade. All of this at the time was the responsibility of the product team. And I was like, first it was embarrassing, and then I was like, oh my gosh, we know nothing here. And so understanding, taking cues from taking cues from customers. Most of my experience after, I should have caveated all of this stuff, but most of my experience after ESPN and Fox was B2B and B2B SaaS in particular. B2C is sort of a bit of a different game. But realizing that there's lots of insights that customers can share with you, either directly if they're particularly astute, or indirectly by watching them and hearing them and reading the tea leaves, and then using that as a guide. I think that would be a major piece of advice. Like, I sort of see product's job as to understand customer needs, and then make sure the customers can get them with a good ROI investment from the dev team, right? You don't overbuild, you don't overspend on dev. You give customers exactly what they need to get by, but you need to understand that, and then you need to sort of translate that so the dev team can build it effectively, or build an effective solution. So I'd say stay close to your customer, be humble and curious about what it is that they need and why.
I think great. I think that's a those are the two good statements, I think, to summarize. Stay close to your customers and being humble. And I think always keep your ego in check and being, open to receiving feedbacks from customers. I think that's a great point and a great insights coming from you, Karim. So I think it's a great conversation we've had. I think from the product roadmap and the journey point of view. I think, I mean, maybe I'll just ask you to maybe again summarize that, let's say when, and predominantly on the lines of that, because I mean, maybe I'm coming from the product hardware side, but I would assume that it's equally true, with whichever kind of product it is, which is that there are a lot of customer feedbacks coming in and around. So maybe I want you to summarize in the way that how, I mean, why it is so important to obviously sift through that customer feedback in order to outline, prioritize, and obviously till the end to get the customer buy-in. So if you have to summarize that entire process and obviously the way you do uh, through the tools like Savio, how it could be summarized to work on that customer feedback.
I mean, I think I would probably put it like this.
Yeah,
You've got all these nuggets of gold locked up in different tools,
yeah,
and those are tools that your colleagues use and customer facing colleagues use. You're not gonna, it's basically impossible to do. I mean, it's sort of crazy to think that you've got all of this gold that's accessible that you're not going to use to
mhm,
make better decisions. Um, and so, it's sort of, if the goal, if a product manager is responsible for understanding customer problems and then building solutions for those, um, you know, it's sort of incumbent on on the product team to understand what those problems are and go and get those gold nuggets, collect them up, figure out how to best use them in order to solve product problems. It's sort of, I mean, we started this company in 2018. We looked at 2015 at the market.
mhm,
Um, and, we talked to 50 PMs and they, generally speaking, said, we're fine. We don't really need it. And I think in the 3 years since then, 2015 to 2018, the world really changed. Things became more competitive,
yeah,
but also like APIs, which were big in 2015, became much bigger and became just much more accepted that you can get this data out and you can use it and you should really use it. And so um, it's sort of crazy to me that teams still operate in a way where they're not using this hugely valuable resource in order to drive their product decisions. Sort of a long-winded way of answering your question, Sudhir.
no, I think that it still cuts the point because what I'm taking it as the customer feedback is a gold nugget, and obviously you need to have a PM's mind and a way of looking at it, wearing the hat, because not everyone can do it. And since you're given the PM responsibility, I think it becomes much more important for you to dig from that gold nugget and dig from that gold mine, and obviously take it to the right stakeholders. So I think great thoughts shared by you, Kareem. I really enjoyed the conversation. In fact, as I mentioned at the beginning, I learned a lot in terms of how a tech product, uh, evolves throughout the journey, and what are the things that obviously are must to have in order to keep building on the product that the product manager is being given the task for. So great to first of all thank you for you to taking out time for the show and to do this podcast. It's really an honor to have you and to collect some pieces of wisdom from your long years of experience. And I'm sure the listeners also would, be equally, excited, and they will also get a thing or two out of this conversation. So thanks a lot, Kareem, for taking out time.
Thanks, Sudhir. I'm blushing. That was very, very kind. It was a pleasure being here. I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.